Hey, y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
Midweek.
Midweek. Yeah.
I'm Dylan.
And she's Heather.
Hey.
Wait,
What?
there's two. Okay. Yeah. She
Hi.
confused me.
What's up, Delano?
Um, everything. The sky.
I thought you were like, I'm bringing it in. I'm bringing the fire. You're not bringing the fire. This is an amazing. You were painting this like you had this introduction. You were just going to fucking nail it. And I'm sorry, Dylan, but you're coming up short, bud.
Look, we need to make a clear picture for the listeners. That was a second take, and the first one was immaculate. Okay, the first one was, honestly, I'm sad that that's going to be archived and never be in the public.
That was actually not the best one.
It was okay. Let's do it again. No, don't stop it, Heather. Let's give them the natural.
Oh,
All right.
gosh. Okay.
Back from the top. We're going to do it like the other podcasts that don't edit shit. All right, here we go. You count me in. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders Midweek.
I'm Heather.
And I'm a sultry Dylan.
Hey, Dylan.
I'm over here smoldering.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look a little smoky.
I feel sweaty.
Thought that was just the humidity from outside.
No, it couldn't be the 5 cigarettes I've smoked since I woke up.
That's healthy.
All righty, so here we are on the midweek. Couple of days late, it happens. We know how Mountain Murders gets down, but this week we're actually super glad that we are a couple of days late.
Dude, this is a indescribable week in true crime.
Huge breaking news stories, multiple cases. I mean, I can't even take it all in. It's like I'm full of breaking news.
I'm salivating
Oh my gosh.
right now over all of the news, Dylan.
One more news story is just going to make me pass out. I can't take it.
Oh, you can't?
It's too much.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You really are like
Hey.
having a moment over here. Let's get started, Dylan. Larry Nassar. Are you familiar with the disgraced former Team USA gymnastics doctor?
No, actually. I mean, no. I mean, yeah, but I don't remember.
Okay, well, he was arrested, charged with basically being a creeper. He was a pedo who inappropriately touched many of the gymnasts over the years that he worked with.
Okay.
He's a fucking creep. Get this, Dylan. He was stabbed multiple times in federal prison because of a comment he made allegedly while watching the women's Wimbledon tennis tournament with some other inmates. And this is coming to us via the Associated Press. 59-year-old convicted sex offender allegedly said to the other inmates on Sunday, quote, "I wish there were girls playing."
I don't know when these guys are not going to figure or are going to figure out that the majority, probably high 90% of guys in prison do not play that shit. And I've heard this story before. There was that guy who he either beat the hell out of him or killed him right there in the common room
in California
because he was trying to change the TV back over to something where kids would show, and he just wasn't having that. And I'm sorry, but you should read the room. You should know that what you're doing, even in a group of people who, some of them's done really bad things, what you're doing is even the worst to them. Rape, child molestation, all those things do not play well in that room.
The Associated Press's report said that the inmate who allegedly attacked Nassar used a makeshift weapon, stabbing him multiple times in the neck, chest, and back before the other inmates allegedly ran in to stop the attack. Nassar remains in stable condition with injuries that reportedly include a collapsed lung. Couldn't happen to a better guy. The former doctor is serving a 175-year sentence in prison for sexually abusing women and girls for decades while he was employed at Michigan State University and as Team USA gymnastics doctor. Separately, he pleaded guilty to possessing 37,000 images of child pornography and was also given a 60-year sentence in federal prison for those charges.
Now think about that for a second. Sometimes anytime anyone does this, it's super horrible and gross. But when people are in certain positions, it makes it even worse, in my opinion. Positions of power, things teachers, church leaders, things like that. A doctor, how creepy is that? This is the guy that sees you naked and touches your body.
Well, according to Nassar's lawyer, he was supposedly attacked while in prison in Arizona back in May of 2018. In February of that same year, the father of 3 of Nassar's victims tried to attack him in a Michigan courtroom, which I know it would be very difficult to be a parent sitting in a courtroom listening to this shit, knowing this creep did these things to your child.
And he's there, and you can see him.
Yeah. More than 150 women and girls have accused Nassar of assault, including some of the Team USA gymnasts Simone Biles, Michaela Maroney, and Gabby Douglas. Sexual abuse allegations from dozens of women started coming in 2015. He was fired by USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University some months later, and then he was arrested by Michigan State University police in 2016. So nearly 100 of these victims collectively sued the FBI for more than $1 billion in damages for the Bureau's inability to stop Nassar after becoming aware of allegations against him in 2015. In 2018, Michigan State University agreed to pay $500 million to more than 300 women and girls who were sexually abused by Nassar. And then they set aside another $75 million in case other victims came forward.
Holy shenanigans. Wow, that's a huge payout. So they're certainly admitting guilt or some kind of negligence on their part if they agree to settling for $500 million, right? That's huge.
That is huge.
And so they could have stopped him. They could have saved some victims. And I just don't get it,
We know this is what happens.
And
they just brush this shit under the rug.
And see, here's the thing. I've said it before, but we shouldn't be leaving it up to the inmates to give these guys the type of justice they need.
And by the way, if you hear banging and creaking, it's because it's summer vacation and we have children in the house. Just FYI.
One of them slinking around our creepy old house.
Yes.
I can't wait for Halloween. No, but it's like these guys, they should get death sentences from the court, and they should be carried out quickly. Okay?
Another breaking piece of true crime news, Dylan, that has just like melted the minds of many out there who have followed the case and, let's be honest, have obsessed over this case because it's quite famous.
I gotta say, I didn't even know about the Nassar story lumped in with the rest of this stuff. I can't take it.
Yes. So Leslie Van Houten, former Manson family member, is released on parole. Now, if you recall, we covered Charles Manson. We had a 3-part episode covering the Manson case. It was a deep dive.
If you haven't listened, Heather taught me so much about Manson and the case and the Manson family. You have to check out the 3-part series. It's incredible.
So at the direction of Charles Manson, Leslie Van Houten participated in the murder of a California couple in 1969, and she was initially sentenced to the death penalty. Now, she admittedly played a very active role in the gruesome double murder of the Los Angeles couple, the LaBiancas, in the summer of 1969. And she was finally released on parole Tuesday after serving more than half a century in prison.
Wow. So 50 plus years in prison.
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
She's going to have to learn to live in a world after 53 years in prison.
Holy cow.
A lot has happened since 1969.
What's your take on this? I'm sure there's mixed reviews of this decision. Many people think anyone connected to any of the Manson family should, basically rot away, until they die. Charles famously, died in prison after decades, and he allegedly was never actually killed anyone. So I've always found this very interesting in the sentencing phase of this.
Now it is. So just to recap, Ms. Van Houten was 19 when she and other members of the Manson family broke into the home of grocer Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary and stabbed them dozens of times on August 10th of 1969. They were murdered one night after 5 people were killed at the home of director Roman Polanski, which, if you recall, his pregnant wife, actress Sharon Tate, was one of the victims of that murder.
And her unborn child.
Now, she was convicted in 1971 on 2 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. She was initially given the death penalty, but her sentence was reduced to life in prison when the capital punishment was outlawed in California the year after she was convicted. Now, she's not been shy about her role in the killings. She even went as far as saying in a parole board hearing in 2002 that she was the one that pinned down Ms. LaBianca while another Manson family member Patricia Krenwinkel, stabbed her in the collarbone.
Oh, my gosh.
Tex Watson, or Charles D. Watson as he is known, another figure in the attack, stabbed Mrs. LaBianca with a bayonet 8 times before Ms. Van Houten stabbed her in the abdomen 14 to 16 times. Now, Leslie admits to her role in wiping down surfaces at the crime scene for fingerprints. She changed clothes. She drank chocolate milk from the couple's refrigerator. Now, later... Some years later, now she has come out and said she definitely regrets taking part in the murders and that she had been mentally ill, that she was suffering from mental illness, and that condition was aggravated by LSD use. Now, when people have asked me, what do you think about this? My take is, after having studied the case and done this deep dive and have just really kind of enthralled myself in all of the information I could find about it,
Gosh.
I think this was a justified release. This woman has served half her life, more than half her life, 50 years. I mean, that's half a century in prison. That's a long ass time.
It is.
She was 19 years old. She was under the influence of LSD. She was being brainwashed by Manson, who would drug up everybody and do these weird sort of brainwashing, ritualistic cult kind of shit to these folks.
Now, I gotta say, I've done back in the day some hallucinogenics like this, and I was like, well, I would never do that. But I also didn't have some little freaky hobbit guy carrying on and on while I'm high as hell.
Yeah.
So honestly, I don't know if I'd have been exposed to this exact same environment with this guy who had intention. He would get everyone else high, I'm sure, and stay sober.
Well, no, that's what he did.
And I don't know. I don't know what it would have maybe, talked me into doing while I was under the influence of acid or LSD.
Well, Leslie Van Houten has said of Charles Manson that she believed he was Jesus Christ, that she bought into it lock, stock, and barrel, to this idea that he was Jesus Christ and that what he's saying was true. And I'm not saying what she did was okay. It was horrible. But there have been vicious killers who've served much smaller amounts of time than her and are released back into society.
It's true.
We've seen pedophiles turned out after serving a year for horrific crimes.
Or 7 years of a 30
sentence.
sentence.
And I think this woman has served, she's like paid her debt to society at this point. And I don't think she will reoffend. She's an old woman.
If she comes straight out and stabs somebody in the neck.
If she does, I'd be surprised, but I just don't see her reoffending.
I agree with your take on this, and honestly, that's what the parole board is looking for, you to admit your part, and they're looking for you to take responsibility for your actions. So that was a good thing for her to admit it and show remorse, true remorse. And then, of course, they look, and I'm sure they're seeing what kind of a record she has as an inmate for 5+ decades. That really is a long, long time. So I agree with your take on this one. In this case, I think that she deserved to be released, and I think she's paid her price back. Now, that's easy for me to say. It wasn't my family members.
But I don't know. I'm a fair-minded person.
Even if it was?
I think I would obviously be like, this person's trash, but at the same time, I would take into consideration the
whole story.
The whole story. And in some ways, and maybe this is just my, my sad little black tiny heart string being pulled, but in some ways, these Manson family members were also victims themselves.
They were certainly victims of various degrees. I think if you take a deep dive into the story, and if you haven't, just check out Heather's 3-part series. It's incredible. She really does dig some stuff out of the closet that I've never heard from the 75 million podcasts on Manson. But if you do dig into that and really take a hard look at it, it was such a crazy time, a crazy environment.
Well, it's just really hard for most people to wrap their heads around what exactly was transpiring there.
Yes.
But if you're already, young and weak-minded, easily to manipulate, he found people who were easy to prey upon.
Well, true.
They were weak-minded. They were young, naive. He knew how to play them, manipulate them. He's giving them these drugs. He's brainwashing them. And don't even get me into the CIA connections and shit. So,
well, don't even get us into
that. Honestly, it's almost like these people were MK Ultra'd.
Well, I
Let's
mean,
be honest.
they were around Haight-Ashbury, all the Jolly West stuff with the free clinics and stuff. There's certainly something nefarious going on there. Their intention to stain the movement. The FBI, everyone wanted to, just leave a mark on the CIA.
You guys, I recommend reading that Tom O'Neill book about the Manson family and the CIA connections.
They really, and it truly did
is going to blow your mind.
It turned to public's talk. Instead of just dirty hippies who aggravate me, they became scared of this lifestyle and the people that live it. So, I mean, there's just so much there. But anyway, we digress.
Dylan, moving along.
Oh my God.
Because we could,
you're
talk about Manson and Leslie Van Houten all day.
Man, you still got some bombshells to drop on them, girl. Drop it.
We do. There has possibly been some breaking news or information. Now, it really hasn't, I guess, been properly vetted yet, but they are taking a hard look at it. But if there's any ounce of truth to this, it could really blow the case wide open. And I'm talking about Jon Benet Ramsey.
This is the one that made my jaw literally drop.
A convicted pedophile claims that he murdered Jon Benet Ramsey in a series of jailhouse letters that he has written about his love for the slain child beauty queen. Jon Benet, now, if you'd have to be living under a rock to not know who Jon Benet is, but if you don't know who Jon Benet is, let me give you a breakdown.
It could be a younger person.
If you're on TikTok or anywhere in the world,
true.
You've heard Jon Benet Ramsey. She was 6 years old when her body was discovered in the basement of her family's Boulder, Colorado home on December 26th of 1996. Because she was a child beauty queen, prominent family, very beautiful little girl, this case captivated headlines. But so far, no arrests have ever been made in connection to her murder. This guy, his name is Gary Oliva. He has been on a former high school friend, Michael Vale's radar as a suspect since the night that Jon Benet was killed. So let's talk about Gary Oliva, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Gary Volva.
Yes. So this guy, Michael Vale, told the U.S. Sun, which, I mean, that's a questionable tabloidy newspaper, that a little after midnight on the day of Jon Benet's murder, he received a distressing call from his friend Gary, this Oliva guy. Vale claimed that his high school friend was crying and told him that he had hurt a little girl. Vale said when he saw the news a few hours later, he immediately went to the Boulder Police Department about this eerie phone call. Despite the circumstances, Vale said he did not receive a response from the Boulder PD for almost 3 months after making this call. 4 years later, Oliva was arrested for trespassing on the University of Boulder campus. And when police arrested him, they discovered that he had several items related to the Jon Benet case on him, personally on his body when he is being arrested for trespassing.
He has it like in his pockets.
Including a taser gun. He was arrested again in 2016 for possession of child pornography. So while he was behind bars, his old friend Michael Vale attempted to pry confession out of Oliva and began writing him. Oliva responded with letters that detailed his love for Jon Benet, claiming her murder was an accident. He also provided some ultra-realistic drawings of the child.
Okay, that's so freaking creepy.
In one of the letters, he wrote, "I've never loved anyone like I did Jon Benet, and yet I let her slip and fall and her head bashed in half, and I watched her die. It was an accident. Please believe me. She was not like the other kids." In another letter, he claimed that he had killed so many children that he had lost track.
Oh, my God. Let's just hope that's not true, but I don't know. Something about this guy looks very evil.
One of Oliva's letters to Vale said, quote, "When I met Jon Benet, she took away that horrible craving to kill kids that you know me for. She changed me into a new person. But it's okay. I've killed so many children, I've lost track."
Who the hell could be any kind of an acquaintance with a child killer? Talking about, hey, man, maybe you should quit killing kids. It's causing problems.
Okay, so Oliva was known to frequent the immediate area around the Ramsey home, including a church that was only 13 addresses away.
So, okay, see, now I've seen that reported incorrectly then. It was a church. He went to a church, frequented a church that was 13 properties away from their home.
Yes.
See, it was reported to me that he lived So that wasn't his home. Thank you for clearing that
That's
up.
why you can't get your news from TikTok.
You got to watch it. They're not true crime podcasters.
Michael Vale claimed that Oliva had a history of breaking into buildings, stealing art supplies, and that he was fascinated with learning intricate knots, all of which were observed in Jon Benet's murder. Vale said he had goosebumps when he saw the garrote used to kill the child, which was fastened with her mother's paintbrushes and a rope.
See, that
He
doesn't...
said, quote, "When I look at some of Gary's art collages he did at high school, he was fascinated with knots, complicated knots. It blew my mind when I saw the knots, and when I saw the garrote, my heart sank."
See that right there? There was a garrote used to strangle her. That doesn't add up with dude's letters that she fell, and am I to believe that he strangled her with a garrote and then he let go and she dropped down and bashed her head? Yeah, so he's a... Do you think this guy's telling the truth?
It's hard to say.
And do you think but he was certainly fascinated with Jon Benet. He had articles, like copies of articles or clipped from newspapers about the case. He had multiple, in various places, he had stored countless images of Jon Benet and articles about it online. So it's just everywhere they looked, they found more images of Jon Benet.
I don't know what to think about this guy.
I mean, if he has been confirmed to be in the neighborhood at the very least,
I think they should take a hard look at him. But I also wonder how accurate these statements are that he's killed so many kids. I mean, can we really connect him to any other murders? Is he trying to get attention? Is he mentally ill?
right,
Is he like hallucinating
right,
or
but
having some sort of delusion about what he did?
or is fantasizing about he wish
Right.
he had done it. If he is some sick freaking child killer, I think it. But I must say, it's one of the most compelling stories about the Jon Benet Ramsey case to break in quite some time.
Yes.
I mean, I guess the last time we heard about it, her father was pushing for the DNA evidence to be retested by the
Yes.
state, right?
Yes.
Is that Colorado?
I believe so.
And
No, it is Colorado.
and I
but
don't
I
underst-
believe he was pushing to have it.
I don't
retested.
understand why that's just not something.
Like maybe even offering to pay to have it tested out of pocket.
Why is it not built into the system, guys? Why is it not built into the system to pay for these tests that can literally overnight, once they're performed,
Well, we spend
solve
money
cases?
on some very asinine things. Our government pumps money into other countries.
California spent $100 million on homeless, and now they have more homeless than ever.
Like
So
50% of the homeless population is in Los Angeles.
that's not working.
like 50% of the U.S.'s homeless population is in California.
Is
Los
in
Angeles.
L.A.
Yeah.
Now, can you imagine? Man, you hear stories from people that live in L.A. that is literally like a hellscape on parts of the town or city. I just can't imagine. We've had some homeless issues in our area, very small scale, and it's still something to behold. So I can only imagine the legendary Skid Row area. I bet it smells. I could smell
Down on Skid Row.
it. Down on Skid Row.
You know I'm a huge Little Shop of Horrors fan.
I can sing all those songs.
Suddenly Seymour standing beside me. I can do it too.
Suddenly
Sweet
Seymour.
understanding. You know I love a good show
Oh,
tune.
I like that. Feed me Seymour. Feed me all night long.
Yeah.
You can do it. I could actually do the plant voice.
Well, why don't
in
we
a
just
play.
we should just do like a 2-person show.
Wait, you want to?
Yeah.
I can do that.
Because I have to say, you know, I've admitted multiple times that Steve Martin was like my childhood crush.
No, okay. I can be Mr. Horowitz as well. Isn't that the
And
store
so
owner?
I want to be the dentist.
They say you're a dentist.
When I was younger, just a bad little kid, my mama noticed the funny things I did. Like shooting puppies with a BB gun.
Dude, you sound just
I'd
like him.
poison guppies, and when I was done, I'd find a pussy cat and bash in its head. That's when my mama said, what did she say?
Oh,
I think, my boy, you'll be a dentist. Okay,
You'll be a dentist.
sorry, I'll stop.
I could be Bill Murray, be like, oh, hurt me more. Oh, yeah.
That dynamic between Steve Martin and Bill Murray
The
is like that is the
sadomasochistic.
funniest
Yeah.
fucking scene in that whole movie.
It's pretty
I
good.
love it.
It also introduced me to the idea of a sadist and a masochist.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, what is that? What is that? Someone who wants pain. And then I was like, ooh.
I know. Even as a child, I like recognized this relationship, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, these are like my parents."
Oh. Okay, she's asking for it, huh?
She keeps coming back for it. It's like they feed off each other. This is like my parents.
Oh wow, that was a nice side note. I enjoyed that.
You'll be dysfunctional.
Oh, and I got to say another thing that we may have to do on behind the paywall for patrons only. So you'll have to join us at Mountain Murders Podcast /Patreon.com. Did I say that right? I think I did.
Sure.
And Heather was reading me erotic fiction, the written word. I don't know exactly how to describe it. And I admitted to her as a younger person, when you're figuring your stuff out, that I did find the written porn or eroticism was very, very.
Dylan over here reading his mama's Harlequin romance novels.
It turned me on.
I bet it did.
Like it had me hot and bothered.
Like Katie was kidnapped by a pirate who took her on his high seas.
Yes, with his big black sword.
You're going to walk my big, thick, hardy plank.
Ooh, damn, it's
Yeah.
damn lengthy.
Yeah.
It's a thick, hardy plank.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. I don't know if I
Yeah.
want to get off that plank.
She didn't either.
Yeah, but anyway, so she was reading me some of this in the kitchen. I'm washing dishes. I damn near put a fork through my hand. I'm like, damn, you're going to have to stop. So she may read me some.
Well, no, we had this idea for Patreon, and
Right.
we even asked some of our patrons what they thought about it, and we got positive feedback. What if we had a few Patreon episodes where I read like erotic fiction to Dylan? Now, not a whole book, but just segments
The best.
of some of the best segments,
The
and get his
hottest.
reaction, because some of Dylan's responses to the short story they were very Dylan-y, and they were very funny. And we might share those with folks. But Dylan, before we get into your interest in pornographic literature,
We got to get back on
we
this.
got to get back on this, because we've got one more break that is just whoa.
This is another huge one. This is
This
big.
is a case that we have covered, and I'm talking about the Long Island serial killings. Gilgo Beach murders, as they are also known. They have a suspect in custody. Now, this is a case that has captured national attention and has just sort of confounded investigators all across Long Island for more than a decade. If you recall, bodies were being found in the bramble around Gilgo Beach, many of them sex workers.
I'm going to say this.
They were found in some of the body parts, and they were found in burlap sacks that were limited to, I guess, certain agricultural, like a lot of people, maybe like golf resorts were using this specific brand. Anywho, they have finally made a break in the case, and they have a suspect. He has been identified as Rex Howerman, or Hewerman. I'm not really sure how you say his name. So someone can correct me. He is expected to be arraigned today after he was arrested last night.
Wow.
Yep. And this is coming from the Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney K. Harrison. Now, Howerman is a 59-year-old New York City-based architect who resides in Massapequa, which is neighboring to Nassau County, where many of these bodies were discovered. He was arrested Thursday evening at his office in Manhattan. And Shannon Gilbert, one of the victims, if you recall, her family has been very vocal in trying to get this case solved, get attention.
Yes.
Shannon's sister and Shannon was also the first of the 11 victims found slain. She said she was relieved that they have finally caught this man. It's been a long time coming, and that she never gave up hope that one day justice would be served.
Man, you know what? I know this is early on, and they seem to have certainly a determined path to move with it. This doesn't seem wishy-washy, right? I mean, it seems like they're ready to go. It's been a very long time.
Suffolk County's DA's office has released a statement saying that they have significant developments in the case, but declined to comment further until they have the court proceeding. And the news was first reported by News 12 Long Island. This is wild. So if you recall in the case, Dylan, they did find a leather belt that was embossed with, I believe it was WH or HW. They couldn't tell.
So a leather belt with
belt.
initials on it.
Right. And so now we have this guy whose last name starts with an H. So I'm not sure if the belt is going to come into play, but that was a pretty significant piece of evidence that they had found at one of the dumping sites.
And allegedly maybe some digital footprints, which could be, in my mind, as far as the type of work some of these girls were doing, maybe contacting them on the internet and trying to set up appointments, right? This is amazing. And I must say that from what really stands out for me in this case, let alone the number of victims, you know, they go find one. It's one of those cases just like the Killing Fields, just like Baton Rouge. They go find one victim, they find 3 or 4 more. It was one of the most hostile environments to be searched that I've ever seen.
Oh, yes.
With the marsh and the tall grasses and that just, because I always wondered, it was so hard for them to get in there and look properly. Now, they had to bring in all this equipment and these, you know, machines that would cut some of the growth out of the water, you know, these aquatic plants, so they can make paths, literally make like trails through this mess.
And then just briars and bramble.
Yeah, and bramble and just,
it's thick and really dense.
Inhospitable to just, I always was curious how the killer got out there in the middle of that, you know, and dumped the body and was able to, you know, get out without being noticed.
Well, in February of 2022, a multi-agency task force that was made up of the FBI, the New York State Police, and Suffolk County authorities was established to reinvigorate the investigation. And so from there, they have been able to, I guess, get this development out to the press and finally make an arrest. So this will be really fascinating news, and to see how this unfolds as time goes on, what evidence they have, and to find out if, because I think so far they have him connected to 4 of the victims.
Right. So
but there's 11.
Yeah, right.
So they're not saying if he's the serial killer or if he's one killer and that there was also a second involved.
Well, I mean, you get these situations with these strange places that are, you know, desolate, you know, whatever, to dump bodies, and you always wonder if another killer saw how much trouble they're having, or, you know, finding the bodies or whatever, identifying things, and thinks it's a good place to dump his bodies too. But at the very least, they claim to have solid evidence on 4 of the murders. That's almost half of them, and I think it would stand to reason, given the access and the kind of tight-knit community of the people that did live near this area. I think he would. I think if they really do have connection to the 4, I think he killed the other ones. I really do. I think he's done it. I think he had a system. I think, I think he's the guy. So at the very least, they can put 4 of these families, possibly 4 families, victims' families' minds at peace, and get justice for them. And I think that's a great thing. And Heather told me some funny stuff about the guy. You know, his neighbors were just like, yeah, he's kind of whatever. And he claimed to be an architect, but he lived in a shitty house. We always thought he would be in a nicer house if he's an architect, which I don't know why, but I found that funny.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that's all you got to say?
I was just like, well, that's what you have to say about your neighbor is
the serial murderer?
Is that he lived in a shitty house.
Yeah, he didn't really paint every 2 or 3 years. We're not sure why he didn't maintain his deck properly. Yeah. I'm like, you nosy, busybody bastards.
Okay. Well, that has been some of the major breaks in true crime, Dylan, this weekend. I mean, these are big cases. This is big news. And I can't wait to see what more we learn over the coming weeks.
I'm spent. I mean, honestly, I've give all I can on even thinking about this. It's such big cases. Alrighty. So if you would like to get more of this, you can join us over at Patreon. Wait, hold on. Now I can say this. Give me a second. Mountain Murders Podcast / at patreon.com. Is that right? Anyway, Heather will tell you where to go. We got all kinds of stuff going on.
Well, I have another very strange local to us news story.
Oh, yes.
That we should discuss.
That is, we almost forgot. This is great.
Oh, no, this is a completely different. We can talk about that one as well, Dylan, but stick with me because this is breaking news.
Well, hold on a second.
Out of Asheville, North Carolina. It is nuts. An investigation is underway after a woman was found engulfed in flames behind the Asheville Police Department building.
What?
This happened today, Friday, July 14th. Officials said the victim had recently purchased gasoline in a small bottle and was shortly seen walking behind a nearby building in the 100 block of New Leicester Highway before being engulfed in flames. Police said a Good Samaritan saw her on fire, grabbed a fire extinguisher from a nearby store, and put the fire out. The woman, who suffered severe burns to 90% of her body, was transported from Mission Hospital to the Doctors Hospital Burn Care Center in Georgia.
Oh, no.
Detectives and investigators from the Asheville Fire Department are investigating the cause of the fire, but so far evidence suggests self-immolation.
Well, I was going to say, dude, is she like one of those protesting monks who do this, set themselves in like these dictatorship countries and they're protesting things? She must have been having significant issues to set yourself on fire.
Well,
and I'm sorry, but if
it's very strange. Well, I guess the reason I was like, whoa, because like the Debbie Collier case, we've discussed multiple times on this podcast, is such a strange situation where this woman was found burned, deceased in the woods.
And it all points to self-harm.
That she did this to herself,
Yeah.
even though, I mean, she's texting her family, they're after me, or they're not going to let me live.
Sending her daughter money.
So I guess just because that was such a strange case, I think of this because, I mean, you'd have to be in a pretty dire mental state to set yourself on fire.
No, it's very sad.
That is brutal.
It's very sad, and it's very very painful. It's just something that I think, well, self-harm for one goes against your wiring.
Well, yes.
You're not supposed to harm.
We're wired for self-preservation.
Your body doesn't want you to
at
harm
all
yourself.
Costs.
But some of these forms, I think, and then that's another step further, setting yourself on fire, because we have this inherent fear of fire.
Yes.
Right? I mean, fire is very important to mankind, but it's also very dangerous. It's really sad that if that's what happened, I feel terrible for the woman. And I'm going to guess that there was opportunities for the system to help her, and she didn't get the help because our mental health system is non-existent.
Another local crime case, Dylan,
dude, this
that
is
is
just
mind-blowing, comes to us via Canton, North Carolina, where you were formerly employed at the paper mill.
Yeah, and these crooks had nothing to do with the paper mill management. Ha ha. This is crazy, bro. It's like a movie. It's like Heat.
Canton police are searching for two men who robbed a cash transit van at gunpoint. So according to the Canton police chief, Scott Sluter, it happened just after 3 p.m. Thursday. So this happened yesterday, Dylan, outside the Exxon gas station on Newfound Street. The suspects were in a white, newer model Dodge Durango. They approached the driver while he was outside at gunpoint, robbed him of the funds he had in the vehicle. Approximately $30,000 was stolen. The armed men then took the driver's weapon and keys, stranding him there for most of the day.
What?
So he didn't want to be...
Most of the day?
Yeah. So like he didn't want to be identified, but he did speak to the News 13 reporter about what happened. He said, quote, "Two individuals bum rushed me from the side and demanded the money that I had just put up. They had pistol to my side and one to my cheek. Or I'm sorry, my neck." So it was like, yeah, kind of stuck. It happened so fast. Everything happened so fast. There was nothing that I can do. The men were slender in build and wearing black long sleeve jackets with black ski masks. He said he's been driving that cash transit van for more than a year, and nothing like this had ever happened to him before. He said the routes are really random and that he never knows where he's going until that morning when he gets... I guess the dispatcher gives him his routes.
So that's to offset the inside job guy, right? So he can even set it up and plan it.
Right. So based out of Charlotte, this was his last stop of the day before he was supposed to head back to the headquarters building. Cameras outside the building were reportedly down, according to an employee. So ironically, the cameras were cut yesterday outside. There's a lot of questions behind some of this stuff. So frustrated that the suspects got away, the driver admitted that he relied on prior military training to stay calm. He said a lot of things ran through his mind of how he could try to stop this or get out of the situation. But at the end of the day, life is more important than anything.
Just give him the money.
He's just doing what he needs to do.
Just give him the money. That's what I would do.
Now, according to the police chief, the suspects took off down Hilltop Farm Road, and he's asking anyone in that area that has security cameras, doorbell cameras, if they have any footage of this newer model white Dodge Durango, because any information will help.
What? Wait. So, wow, they cut beside the store instead of heading straight to the interstate, which I thought they may do, or shoot.
Well, we should talk about this area because we do have listeners that are local to our area and know where we're talking about. But if you're not from this area, this is a fairly secluded gas station
Yeah.
that is nestled between like the highway and several kind of back roads that hit main thoroughfares, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's exactly right. You can easily access I-40, major interstate. You can go east or west. You can shoot across that bridge, and you can keep going straight. A 2-lane that leads into like the Leicester area of Asheville.
It's called Newfound.
Newfound.
And it takes you kind of up over a mountain and a back way into Asheville.
Now I assumed
You can hit some side streets, and you're on Old Asheville Highway, which will also take you into Asheville.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. There's actually multiple avenues of escape.
And this is kind of a rural area, so these guys could very easily be parked in a barn.
But they
Could,
stayed.
they could have ditched this vehicle, and who knows? But this is a wild story. Things like this typically don't happen around here.
It's wild.
It's been a big news story.
And what did I tell you? I said I bet they took back roads to stay off the interstate and away from troopers who are going to be rallied very quickly. And they went even more back road and cut down beside the store. And I don't even know where the hell Hilltop Farm Road goes. So they definitely knew what they were doing, and they had it planned out. And it's pouring rain.
Oh, I just heard that.
All righty.
And look at Rufus asleep on the couch.
I sleep like that.
He loves this. We have a little couch in our podcast studio, and he always curls up on it and takes a nap while we record, and he looks very cute right now.
I lay with my little booty up in the air like that, just like that.
Yeah, you do.
Don't I?
Kinda.
Yeah. And it goes, Heather wants to bite it, she says, when she sees it.
Okay.
Hey, that's a true story. All righty then. Well, it's been a great midweek. I just can't even. We're going to go look and see what else breaks. We've had breaking local news as we're recording. This is just a big day. We can't wait. So, Heather, tell them.
I have the latest in horror news, Dylan.
Well, this just doesn't stop, dude.
No,
It's like,
this is some true horror news, according to me, and then we will wrap it up
no,
and
okay.
call it a day.
Go ahead, lay it on me.
A 19-foot, 125-pound python is the largest ever caught in Florida.
That's horror news.
It is the longest Burmese python ever caught in Florida.
Oh, my God.
The serpent was found in Big Cypress National Preserve in Okeechobee, measuring 19 feet and weighing 125 pounds, according to the Conservancy of Southwest Florida.
And Heather would just die. She would just die if she saw this creature in the wild. I don't even think she would watch a
Around
video.
1 a.m. on Wednesday, python hunters stumbled upon this behemoth and contacted the python team at the Conservancy, which is an environmental nonprofit based out of Naples, so that they could come collect the measurements. So a 22-year-old Naples native named Jake Walleri and a guy named Stephen Guada found the record-breaking snake in the preserve. They wrestled the python for about 3 minutes before he was able to get a hold of the head.
What? These crazy bastards jumped in there to wrestle
Larry
it?
said, quote, "It's the only snake I've ever seen that scared me enough where I just didn't know what to do."
Go away from it, dude. You want to poke it? Hey, look, a 40-foot long python. It was actually nearly 20. Let's poke it with a stick.
This is a fucking monster in the Everglades.
Dude, these things are left.
This is a monster.
Hey, these are left over from the dinosaur times, bro.
You think so?
Dude, these snakes are... If you ever watch... I saw one day. They had to make a big trap for the thing that like basically grabbed its head when it came on the shore because it kept coming up in there and killing like all the animals.
This thing is so big. These two adult men who killed it have it stretched. It's draped from one fella's knee up over his shoulder, down the other side, drops down to their knees, goes up over the other guy's shoulder, and then its head is also dropped.
Let me see that.
Look at this fucking thing.
Jesus.
We may put a picture of this on social media.
This would hunt humans.
This is a horror show.
I think.
This is the scariest thing I've seen.
I don't know what the hell they're smiling about either. That shit ain't funny.
Well, because it's dead. I'd be smiling too, but I ain't gonna be touching it.
Florida does have a rather big problem, significant problem of pythons thriving in the wild, much like the Medellin hippos. Right? They've thrived. The cocaine hippos, Pablo's hippo crew that have turned into, I want to say, around 40 or 50 now.
You know what I'm looking forward to when they bring back the T-Rex?
Okay.
And he just takes to smashing cars
Yeah.
all along I-40.
Okay.
And every time there's a traffic jam.
Yeah. You know it's a T-Rex.
In and out of Asheville, the T-Rex just clears the highway
Oh.
by throwing the cars around and
So
like
you
eating
can-
the people in the cars.
So you can pay for this service and have the T-Rex come and go in front of you.
I mean, it would really do some good in the world, but I don't know.
All right, Heather. You tell them where they really can get more of Mountain Murders, because you got so much going on. We have the last meals of death row inmates. We have the FBI files, Most Wanted. I love those. I love both of those. We possibly could have erotic Dylan fiction soon.
We've got our movie club.
We have our movie
We've got
club.
our newest episode of the movie club will be dropping.
Oh, we have some
probably
great
today.
ones.
Yeah, our latest movie club episode will be discussing Kai, the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker.
Oh, my God.
Which is a documentary on Netflix. If
It's
you
a great
haven't
one.
seen that, we're going to be breaking that down for our patrons. So always a good time to join Patreon. We have a lot of bonus ad-free content there. And as Dylan mentioned, that's patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. You can also find us on social media. We're on Twitter at Mountain Murders Podcast. And you can find us on Instagram at Appalachian True Crime.
And you can find me on the front porch sitting and looking.
You can find Dylan like making statements that don't make any sense. That's what you'll find.
Well, that happens too.
He starts mid thought with something, and you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
This is part of his sitting and looking.
No, I got to work on that. I would think something, and I will start telling someone about it during the middle of the thought, and they don't have any idea what I'm talking about. I don't just do you like that, Heather. I do other people like that as well. I'm trying to work on it.
Yeah. So sitting, looking, have thoughts. That's where you'll find Dylan this week. Okay, bud. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. We
All
got
right.
things to do.
We got things to do.
We've got pythons to kill. I'm just
Shit.
kidding. I'm not doing any of that.
You would get on a plane and leave the entire state.
Yeah, I'm not going to Florida because they have pythons.
All righty.
Okay.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.